Okay, so get this. We're talking potential trade war today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you sent over a bunch of articles about possible new tariffs
Wow.
on stuff coming in from Canada and Mexico, and
Yeah.
things are heating up.
Yeah, no kidding. The timing here is pretty wild.
Yeah.
We're looking at President Trump possibly dropping a 25% tariff on imports from both countries by Saturday.
Saturday.
It's all about putting pressure on them regarding border security.
That's just 2 days away.
Yeah.
No wonder everyone's freaking out.
So for our deep dive today,
Right.
let's get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
What could this mean for businesses?
Yeah.
Those intricate supply chains we hear so much about, and something you're probably particularly interested in. What impact might this have on trucking rates?
That's the million-dollar question. And the uncertainty is a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
There's a real divide between those who see this as a genuine threat and those who think it's just a hardcore negotiating tactic. We'll need to explore both sides of that coin.
It's making me think back to 2018 when those tariffs on Chinese goods hit.
That wasn't just political posturing. It had a real impact, especially when it came to freight.
It absolutely did. Those tariffs set off a chain reaction. Trucking rates jumped, capacity got squeezed, and the entire industry felt the pressure. It's actually fascinating to consider that those 2018 tariffs acted almost like a stimulus package for the freight industry.
A stimulus, that's an interesting way to put it.
Think about it. When those tariffs hit, businesses had to scramble to adjust their supply chains, leading to a surge in demand for trucking services to move goods around. It wasn't a planned stimulus, but it definitely had that effect.
I see what you mean. Okay, so now we're looking at the National Truckload Index today, and the dry van spot rate is sitting at $1.85 per mile. But here's the kicker. It's been on a downward trend lately.
Exactly, and that brings us to the big question.
Okay.
Could these new tariffs completely reverse that trend and send rates soaring again?
Right.
It's honestly too early to say for sure,
Yeah.
but it's a development worth monitoring closely, particularly for anyone involved in shipping or logistics.
Speaking of monitoring closely,
Yeah.
did you hear about that webinar Kuhn plus Nagel held on this very topic?
I did.
Apparently, it drew a crowd of around 1,500 people. That's a whole lot of anxiety in one virtual room.
It's a clear indicator that businesses are taking this threat seriously.
Yeah.
They're desperate for information and guidance on how to weather a potential storm.
So let's get practical for a moment.
Yeah.
If these tariffs do go into effect on Saturday, what are some immediate steps businesses should be taking?
Well, Greg Thompson from Kuhn plus Nagel, one of the experts at that webinar, had some pretty solid advice.
Okay.
He stressed that the first order of business is to take stock of what's already in motion. We're talking about goods in transit, existing purchase orders, the whole shebang.
So get a clear picture of what's already out there and vulnerable.
Exactly.
Then what?
Then it's time to look at short-term solutions that could buy some time.
Like?
Things like utilizing bonded warehouses,
Uh-huh.
which essentially means those goods haven't officially entered the country yet. Or looking into the possibilities of foreign trade zones, areas with specific tax rules that can offer some relief. It's about damage control and minimizing that initial impact.
Okay, so short-term damage control is key. But what about the big picture, the long-term implications? Let's say these tariffs become a reality. What could that mean down the line?
Now we're getting into some truly fascinating territory. One potential outcome, and this is something the administration has spoken about, is that these tariffs could actually spark a shift in manufacturing back to the U.S., a sort of bring those jobs home scenario.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But some might argue it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
What are the potential downsides of focusing on reshoring?
Well, you have to consider the potential costs. Reshoring manufacturing can be expensive,
Right.
and it doesn't guarantee those lost jobs will simply reappear. Plus, it could lead to higher prices for consumers if production costs increase.
Tomsad actually seemed pretty skeptical about whether it would really bring back the kind of high-end manufacturing jobs that people might be hoping for.
He's right to raise that concern. It's not a simple equation. Reshoring manufacturing is a complex process, and it doesn't necessarily translate into a direct replacement of those lost jobs. There are a lot of variables at play.
So let's imagine you're a supply chain leader right now listening to all of this. You're probably starting to feel a bit overwhelmed. What's the key takeaway here? What should you be prioritizing?
I think Nari Viswanathan from Coupa Software really nailed it. He stressed that in situations like this, businesses need to focus on what they can control.
Which is?
Being prepared. Building supply chains that are resilient and agile enough to handle unexpected disruptions.
So that means.
It's about utilizing software tools to model various tariff scenarios and develop robust contingency plans. Basically getting ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the disruption to hit. Be ready for it.
So anticipate the worst, hope for the best?
Right.
But there's still that elephant in the room. Is this whole tariff threat just a bluff? Top sets seem to think there's a decent chance that this deadline is more about leverage than anything else.
He might be onto something. It's important to remember that both Mexico and Canada could actually benefit politically from this situation.
Really?
They could win by appearing to have gotten concessions from the U.S., even if those concessions involve only minor adjustments to border security.
Hold on a second. Wouldn't they also face economic downsides from these tariffs?
Oh, absolutely.
It seems like a risky gamble.
You're absolutely right. It's a high-stakes game for everyone involved.
Yeah.
There's definitely a risk of economic fallout for both Mexico and Canada if these tariffs go into effect.
So we've got a lot of political maneuvering happening behind the scenes, which honestly isn't all that surprising in the world of international trade.
Trade deals are rarely straightforward.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of back and forth, a lot of posturing.
But these feel like exceptionally high stakes.
They do.
We're talking about the potential to disrupt already strained supply chains, not to mention the impact on businesses and consumers.
Which leads us to a crucial question.
What's that?
Is this type of brinkmanship, using tariffs as a primary negotiating tactic, the new normal?
Now that is a thought-provoking question. And you know what? That's exactly what we're going to unpack when we continue our deep dive.
Yeah.
Because if this is just a negotiating tactic,
It really does set a precedent.
it's like, are we really willing to disrupt the entire global economy just to,
Right.
to get what we want?
And it might have always been a factor behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It does seem like we're seeing these aggressive tactics more and more frequently these days.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what this means for the future of global trade as a whole.
Exactly. If every trade deal becomes this high-stakes game of chicken, it's hard to imagine anyone truly winning in the long run.
No, everyone's just on edge, constantly waiting for the next tariff threat to drop.
Yeah, businesses can't plan for the future
Right.
if they're always scrambling to react to the latest political drama.
So where does that leave us?
Well,
It seems like the first takeaway is the importance of staying informed.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's vital to pay close attention to these developments, understand what they could mean, and think critically about the sources you're getting your information from.
Because let's be real, there's a lot of noise out there.
Oh, yeah, you've got pundits,
Yeah.
politicians, industry insiders,
Right.
all with their own agendas and perspectives,
It's easy to get caught up in the hype, the fear, the uncertainty.
which is why it's so crucial to take a step back,
Yeah.
breathe, and assess the
Please.
situation clearly.
Look for the facts, consider all the different angles,
Yeah.
and try to see through the spin.
And that's something we aim to do here on The Deep Dive.
Exactly. We want to help you, the listener, make sense of these complex issues.
Yeah.
So you can make informed decisions, whether you're a business leader, a policymaker, or just someone trying to understand what's happening in the world.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And in this scenario, knowledge could mean the difference between weathering a potential storm and being blindsided.
So how about we take another look at those sources you sent and see what else we can learn?
Sounds good to me.
It's interesting, we've spent a lot of time talking about the potential negative consequences of these tariffs.
Yeah, the downsides.
But what if in the long run,
Right.
they actually end up sparking some positive changes?
That's definitely a possibility worth considering.
Yeah, for instance, if these tariffs do encourage companies to bring their manufacturing back to the U.S., that could create jobs, boost the economy, and maybe even lead to more sustainable supply chains.
Yeah, it's about finding those silver linings.
Right.
Those unexpected opportunities that can emerge from challenging situations.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even when things feel uncertain and disruptive, there's always potential for innovation and growth.
Like, instead of just relying on that old saying about one door closing and another opening,
Yeah.
let's look at a concrete example.
Okay.
Imagine a company that currently sources a key component from Mexico,
Uh-huh.
faced with a 25% tariff. They decide to invest in producing that component domestically. Initially, it might be more expensive, but it could also lead to greater control over their supply chain,
Right.
reduce transportation costs in the long run, and potentially even the creation of new, highly skilled jobs here in the U.S.
That's a great point. It's not just about shifting jobs. It's about potentially fostering innovation and creating a more resilient manufacturing base.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So maybe these tariffs, as difficult as they might be in the short term, could actually act as a catalyst for positive change in the long run.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility worth keeping in mind as we navigate this complex and ever-evolving global landscape.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of flexibility and adaptability for businesses,
For sure.
especially in today's world.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the potential impacts of these proposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico,
Uh-huh.
delved into the implications for businesses and supply chains, and even examined the political motivations driving these actions.
And we've raised some crucial questions about the future of global trade and whether this type of brinkmanship is becoming the new normal.
Right. Questions that we'll continue to explore as the situation unfolds, of course.
Because this story is far from over.
Yeah.
There's still so much we don't know about how this will all play out.
So, to our listeners, we encourage you to stay informed, think critically about the information you encounter, and be prepared for whatever comes next.
Because in a world as complex and rapidly changing as ours, knowledge and